Hi guys, welcome back to the shop. Here's another quick tip. I'm still working on these torque tubes. A couple of parts to this. Number one, you can see here where I wrote number one on it. This is the first end of this tube that I'm working on, and you want to make sure you identify these and clock them so that they go back together exactly the same way, because the chances are pretty slim that you're going to get it so perfectly drilled that it would fit either end or in a different clock position 180 degrees. So I use the punch, and then if you want to, you can polish that off when you're all done after you get the thing riveted. The other thing is that make sure, I don't have the other end done yet, make sure you don't do both ends. It's real tempting to put the other fitting in the other end of that and go ahead and drill the other end, but then there's no good way to get these out of here. The way I do it, I've got a piece of scrap 3/8 inch round rod aluminum, and I'll be able to drop that in here from the open end and tap out that fitting to get it out of there, because I need to deburr it, and then I'll prime and get ready to put it all back together. So I'll tap that one out, it's marked, and then I'll do the same operation on that end and then tap it out, and I'll clean it all up and deburr everything, prime it, and then I'll rivet it back together. The second tip, and this is a little tool that I made because I had trouble with the fittings not fitting. The tolerance was way too close. So I just drilled this and tapped it. You could use nuts for the same operation, but when you put it back together, a lot of this kind of stuff I like to do it wet. I guess people have had problems putting bearings together wet, but I don't think I understand exactly what the problem is, how you could get the bearing. You don't have to have the bearing on here to do this part of it, but I put them together wet with primer. But when I put that back in, I'll line them up, and if you're going to err on the alignment, then I like to make sure that it's out of alignment counterclockwise, and that way I can thread that little fitting on there. I can clamp the fitting in the vise, and then I can just rotate the tube by hand, and as it tightens up, it will let me rotate it around so that it lines up. So right now the rivets fit in there just fine, but when you put this back together, it's going to be really tight, especially if you're doing it wet, and it might be tight anyway because the drilling process, you still might have a little burr on the inside, and it won't line up, and it'll be real hard to twist. And then one option, which I don't like, is to grab that with some pliers. You're going to leave marks all over it, and you might screw up the threads. So I clock it in there just a little bit counterclockwise, so that when I twist this on, tightening up against the threads and it bottoms out, it'll twist around and line up. And then while you're doing that, when I have that other end of that in the vise, so this, let me see if I can show you here. That would thread on there. Then this piece gets clamped in the vise because I don't care about marring that. And then as I'm screwing this, I'm kind of twisting on this by hand, and I'm holding pressure on these rivets because they're not going to line up right away. They'll go in this far, like you see here now, and then as I twist around on it, it'll line up, because I clocked it intentionally out of balance or out of alignment. But that's the tip for now. See you next time.